So greetings to those of us who are here. Thanks for joining us. Let's continue the reading. We are looking at the do's. Over a period of 2 weeks, we're looking at the don'ts. So let's continue the do's, which is actually continuation of Dr. George 80 reading of the book Defeating Dictators, and we are in chapter 9. So this is Tapua. If you're in a position to read for us, please go ahead and do so.
Thank you very much. Could we have the title of the chapter, please, so that we have this in context? The do in context. What's the title of the chapter?
It was actually external prose. Let me get it to you directly.
Okay.
This was how the West can get it right, but the chapter was on international importance.
Okay, international importance and hindrance. And then we now have the do's. Who's supposed to be doing what? I think that's what we're going to find out, hey?
Yeah, we started with the word, how the West got it wrong. That's what they said.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering about I'm just wondering about the way international.
Yeah, how the West got it wrong. Then it was listed some other ways on how they got it wrong, various revolutions. And we went to the don'ts, what the West should not do, and what now the West should do.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll read that, but I'm just wondering why the West should do anything. Anyway, it's okay. Let's find
how
out.
the West can get it right now, you see?
Yeah, but why should they get it right? For whom?
Now, Dr. Eti feel that the West should get it right in Africa. I don't know why you want them to get it right as well.
Exactly.
We are going to look at the do's so that we see whether it makes sense how they want to get it right and what it should get right. Probably Dr. Eti answers that.
Yes, and I wonder what the West thinks about the do's, because they yeah. Anyway, I'll read. Brother Ifo, how are you?
Beautiful, blessed, and highly favored.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, I'll read the do's. Therapeutic medicine. The West can help defeat dictators and advance the cause of liberty by taking any one of the following measures or strategies. Create a new United Nations. The United Nations could be the perfect body to serve in the vanguard of freedom for the people of the world. But it is indisputably dysfunctional. It can neither stand up to dictators nor prevent despotism, and seeks only to clean up the trail of devastation and human debris they leave behind. It even succumbs to despots. On March 18, 2011, however, the United Nations did redeem itself by imposing a no-fly zone over Libya to prevent its dictator from slaughtering his people. But the institution still needs to be reformed. At a minimum, this should include the following: enforce the United Nations on 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Countries that do not adhere to that declaration should be thrown out of the United Nations. In particular, Article 19, which guarantees freedom of expression, should be rigorously enforced. Aggressively apply the principle of reciprocity to member nations. Every September, the United Nations holds a General Assembly meeting in which dictators of various stripes step up to the podium and spit vitriol at whoever peeves them. A corresponding mini assembly should be organized in each member nation on the same day that its leader is speaking at the General Assembly or the day after to enable his citizen to vent their spleen as well. Each end religious persecution. Countries that allow churches or mosques to be desecrated or burnt with impunity should be kicked out of the United Nations. End the abuse of veto power, or it should be possible to override a Security Council veto with a 2/3 majority vote in the Security Council or the General Assembly, or the Secretary General should have the power to override. Disperse specialized United Nations agencies strategically around the developing world. For example, locate the Commission of Human Rights in Zimbabwe and the Commission of Economic Development in North Korea. Are we scrolling down?
Human rights in Zimbabwe.
Yes. This is a new section. Should we discuss the previous one? The previous things that have been raised?
Yeah, let's start from there, but it's a quick one.
Okay. So I should read on?
Yeah, start with making Human Rights Commission in Zimbabwe.
No, the reason I reacted the way I did was having Zimbabwe and North Korea in the same sentence.
No, North Korea deserves development. Zimbabwe deserves human rights.
Oh no.
Dr. Iti,
I think he's being cynical. I frankly think he's being cynical. He's not serious. Or does he think having the human rights stationed here is going to force the political people to abide by human rights because it's right in their country? I don't know.
now that's what I'm thinking. I'm having problem. Dr. Iti is proposing reformation of the UN. And I remember we have been saying also AU is toothless bulldog.
Mm-hmm.
Now Dr. Iti is also saying UN is a toothless bulldog. But again, the UN, from my own understanding, if it is a United Nations, is it the nations, the tribes of the world, or is a united? Because other people are united there as nations, other are united there as countries. Now, the setup of a UN is where the former colonizer sits to their former colonies. Now, it was formed before even we got independence. And it was part of those organizations that even were okay with that colonialism. So how do we expect that the UN will help us?
I don't think he wants. Sorry.
He's saying, of course, I know it says human. It says UN is ineffective, and that UN need to be reformed, and that UN, like their successful operation of no fly zone over Libya, and you know what happened during Libya. Here, Dr. Ed is referring to Muammar Gaddafi as the dictator who wanted to kill everybody, slaughter his people. Very interesting. But Sister Tapo, please come in.
Now, I wanted to say The title of this book is Defeating Dictators. And I'm raising the question that I've raised before. Why does Haiti think that Europe must lead, or the United Nations, or the West must lead in in defeating dictators? Because it does not make sense. Because the United Nations was formed as a result of the European wars, and it was meant to, well, settle the problems they had. And it was not meant to include us. We've just tried to impose ourselves into this institution, or they've tried to co-opt us to make us keep quiet, but keep us at the periphery of the organization. So it's not ours, and it's not supposed to function to universally defeat dictators, is it? I don't think so.
Can you not describe the Europe war as also the dictators fighting?
Absolutely.
They
Absolutely.
engage in their own killing of their own people.
Mm-hmm.
But that one, maybe Dr. Edi doesn't see us being dictators. But now, the Africans are now the dictators. Probably again, by recommending that the UN help defeat dictators, maybe he's also guilty that the UN is also, or the former so-called West, are also part of the reasons for those dictators to be there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we have a problem with the definition of who qualifies to be a dictator, according to who. That's a problem we're having all along with Dr. Eti. But when he's saying that the dictators, you look at when he say aggressively apply the principle of reciprocity. You see this second point, reciprocity to its members, apply principle of reciprocity to member nations. Every September, the UN holds a General Assembly meeting in which the dictators of various tribes step up to the podium and split vitriol at whoever peeves them. Now, a corresponding mini assembly should be organized in each of the members' nation on the same day that the leader is speaking at the General Assembly, or the day after, to enable his citizens to vent their spleen as well. So this one I think is very good strategy. As much as it sounds very, very funny, but the question is, and I think some of the Pan-Africans have been even pushing this, like when Ruto killed many people during the Gen Z, we have always been going out to protest when those presidents appear in Europe, maybe block them, send statements, and all that. But it's very funny that the UN gives a blind eye when presidents like Ruto does the all killings here, and then they clap and give a standing ovation when they give the same speech. Very, very funny. I don't know how you see that. How you see that recommendation? Is this something making sense?
It doesn't make sense to me, but I'm wondering what Brother Ifo thinks about all this.
Brother Ifo was at a wedding. Brother Ifo, how are you?
Well, I was at the wedding. I'm not at the wedding anymore, so I can speak.
How are you? Please come in.
So the question would be, why is France, America, England, and Belgium still not kicked out? Because they have violated the UN's so-called Declaration of Human Rights. Why are they still there? Even today, we have Israel violating, we have US violating the rights not just of people in Palestine, but of people in their own territory. No response. We only seem to see a response when African leadership or leadership of other people blocks the ability of US or other multinational corporations to steal resources. Why have they kidnapped the president of Venezuela and the US is not kicked out? So those are just questions that I ask that make me go, Those are my reflections on that.
Sorry, it's very interesting. But again, if you are raising concerns on countries like UN and the West, why have they not been sent out of the UN? And here, Dr. Eti thinks that those Europe and the US are the people who should send away these so-called leaders or dictators out of the same podium. Very interesting.
And it also reflects the hierarchical nature of the West, because who is endowed with the power to send anyone out? That's the implication, that there are powers that be that can send people out because they are perfect. And also, I'm thinking about the suggestion of giving citizens the opportunity to vent. It assumes that the leaders listen to the people, because Ruto has been given petitions. Excuse me, people have spoken, but do they listen? No, they don't, especially when they've been uploaded already. So that automatically means that whatever you say, it's neither here nor there. If this were to work at all, I would give the reverse. I would do it in the reverse. I would get the people of Kenya to speak before Ruto speaks. Then we hear what Ruto says about what his people say about him and his policies.
I think that's very interesting. So allow the citizens speak before the president speaks.
Yes. Because we know dictators, don't we? We know they don't listen. We know they're not interested. Some of them will give a facade of allowing people to speak and then not listen. So what difference is it going to make if they speak at the United Nations, and then back in Kenya or in Zimbabwe, we make our own mini speeches? Who's going to be listening to them? We're going to be speaking to ourselves? Sorry, my brother, we can't hear you. Sorry.
Can't you hear me?
Now we can.
I say I really miss the Mugabe speeches at the UN.
Fiery ones.
You know, they called Mugabe dictator. They did all the sanctions. But sometimes Mugabe was very interesting. Very few leaders dare to do some of the speeches Mugabe was doing, even maybe if he was that bad. But very few leaders have the guts to even give the speech Mugabe was giving.
Yes,
fact,
and from sorry.
Our President Ruto, if you read the speech of our President Ruto most of the time, he's calling for fair cooperation, working together, just society, as if Ruto thinks that the West and the capitalist system can have what you call fair and just cooperation. With who? Very interesting.
What do you think of Gaddafi's speeches to the UN?
Yes, Brother Ifo?
So do you also miss Gaddafi's speeches?
Yeah,
yes.
No, Gaddafi was, you know, I think that's why even they label him dictator that much. Because if there are two people who are actually consistent, and even after Gaddafi, I think Mugabe still followed that path. But the Ruto type of today's speeches is calling for integration, is calling for fair cooperation, justice, and all blah, 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 blah. Now, surely, you are calling America to have your fair integration, fair justice, and cooperation. Very interesting.
Yes. You know, I would like to contrast Gaddafi and Mugabe. You know, when we heard and listened to Mugabe's speeches at the United Nations, but lived But to have the experience to have lived under him, or whilst living under him, he'd go out there, say the right things, but he was not being fair on his own people. And I think that's where we've got a problem. Because Mugabe's image out there is of a revolutionary. But to us, or to some of us, he was not good for our people because he was good for his own people, for his political party. And that's where the problem is, because he was also being reactionary. Even with the land take back, it was because the war veterans were pressurizing him to be fair, because the politicians themselves were allocating themselves, they were becoming rich, and they were forgetting people who had actually held the gun. And that in itself has become a problem in this country, because people go to war to fight for everyone. A war is won by everybody because everyone plays a part. You don't have to hold the gun, all of you. So what has now happened is the war veterans started standing up for themselves and try to get stuff for themselves. So they've now forgotten that they went to war for everybody to liberate the country. And the country includes all people, not just those who went to war. And the worst is now we have a situation where, because the people who went to war are dying out, their children and grandchildren are occupying the status of those people who went to war, and they require benefits that the whole of society does not get. And even people who lost their own children during the war did not get anything, which is why Zimbabweans react the way they do. If people say, let's go out into the street and stand up for our rights, and they say, die, and then what happens to my family? They get forgotten. And then what happens to me? Nothing. And it's just bad. The result of Mugabe and his policies have just discouraged Zimbabweans and robbed them of their voice.
No, Mr. Tukua, I hear you, because
Mm,
that's common thing in the continent where leaders
mm,
speak and don't act to their speeches.
yeah.
That's obvious. Look at now Museveni. He speak against the West. In fact, I think he stopped attending UN. He don't attend nowadays.
Mm,
He doesn't
mm,
go there anymore. But then look at what he's doing to Kisa Besigye.
mm,
It's totally different. Look at how maybe sometimes, as much as you can call Bobby Wine, but look how sometimes even treat those people. See?
mm,
Now look at Samia Suluhu. Talks very silent, very polite, very good mother. But look at how
mm,
she handles people on the ground.
mm,
How she still detains Tundu Lissu, the opposition leader.
mm,
So speeches and actions, and I think that's why Nkrumah is telling us that thought and action must match.
mm. And I was saying the contrast, whereas Gaddafi had principles in his own country, he supported people, people were accorded status fairly across all quotation marks classes. And it appeared a just society from those who lived the experience and witnessed it, and especially because of the contrast of what Libya is today versus what Libya was during Gaddafi's time.
Yeah, let's
There
look
is a
at
clear difference.
as we bring Brother Ifo in as well. Uh, uh, it is also proposing that we end religious persecution. That countries that allow churches or mosques to be desecrated
Desecrated.
or burnt with impunity should be kicked out of the UN nations. I'm very surprised it talks of only church and mosque, not countries that also condemn the shrines and all these other traditional religion, but he's only concerned on countries that are against church and mosque. That's okay. I don't support maybe people to be burnt in churches. Or the Ruto team did that in 2008. I don't support that. And actually, they went to ICC and they came back and they became presidents and elected. But why? I've been having this argument, but Brother Ifo is here, and having been, of course, from Nigeria, they can know more of this. I've been having this argument on the people who claim, and some of them are Christian. I hold a neutral position on this, that the war in Nigeria is the Muslims who are killing Christians, and that Islamic is more dangerous because it's more criminal and kill more people than Christianity. That Christians are more polite, are more holier, and all these things. And I told them in that conversation. I think I see Brother Coco is here. Welcome, Brother Coco and Brother Philip. I think Brother Coco might be aware of this conversation in some of our platforms. And I asked them one question. Is America Islamic or Christian? And if there's a country that has also committed a lot of atrocity across the world, killing all over, is America. Is Israel, that was killing people in Palestine, also so Islamic? But when you start to qualify or justify or compare evils on religious lenses, as if Africa only has Christians and Muslims. And if you think what Brother Kwame Nkrumah tells us, that where do you then miss the traditional African religious practices? And they call them, they're very barbaric, very ill, very evil, sacrificing people, and all that they want to call. So one, yes, in this point of ending religious persecution as a procedure or a tool to be used by the UN, I'm not supporting that people should be banned in church or mosque. But why should Dr. Eti bring churches and mosques to be a central thing here in the conversation about so-called dictators in Africa? That's what I'm only trying to raise. Anybody can come in, Brother Ifo. Brother Ifo, are you in on that comment? Or...
As usual, I was cooking and I didn't think you were going to call me so soon. But regarding this, Fela Kuti had a brilliant song where he talks about the interesting thing of when he walks around in the southern part where the Christians reign, and when he goes to the north and he walks around where the Muslims reign, and he notices that in the north where the Muslims reign, they claim that the reason why there is no fun is because the Christians in the south are stealing it. That's what their politicians and the leaders and the other thieves say. And then when you go to the south, the southern politicians and power brokers will tell you that the reason why there is no money is because the Muslims in the north are stealing it. So really, it's just thieves who are blaming somebody else for their thievery. And it's very, very convenient. But to speak specifically about death, they're just killing people, and they're not, they're killing innocent people, whether they're Christian, whether they're Muslims, whether they're folks that are practicing our traditional religions. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, they're human. And the distraction sometimes where we have people being murdered in the Igbo people that were murdered in Biafra, in the region that they called Biafra, that were murdered in the last few years. They were murdered by fellow Igbos, but they don't talk about that. So it's very selective, unfortunately. I'm not saying that there isn't some sort of, people talk about the jihad of the Muslims. And I say, how is that fundamentally different from what people have done and continue to do in the name of Christianity when they support Israel, or when they support America, when they support the kidnapping of people, when there's all these things that they're being done. But for some reason, when Christians or so-called Christian nations, including England, do it, they claim that they're, doing law and order. So fundamentally, I don't see any difference between whether it's Arab supremacy or Christian European supremacy. It's the same anti-human ideology. Just one group calls it Allah, the other one calls it God. Same stuff, different. Which that's my not so humble take. And I need to go back to my kitchen before I burn something.
You're cooking. That's fine. Can I come in?
Please come in.
Yes. Okay. I'm just wondering why Dr. Haiti is so, it lacks seriousness for me. A statement like end religious persecution, took me aback. How does one end religious persecution? You'd then think that the following sentences are going to suggest how to end religious persecution. Because if he's done critical analysis of why we have religious persecution, then he can stand on some ground to suggest how the West can end religious persecution. Secondly, when he provides his solution to ending religious persecution, he then says, kick them out of the United Nations. And I'm going, what are people expected to get from the United Nations? Why would they want to stay in the United Nations? That's so beneficial. If we don't understand the reasons behind religious persecution. So his dues here should look closely at why we have religious persecution. And I agree with him. Religious persecution should not be allowed. But the way he blatantly says, end religious persecution, as if there's a switch that one can just, especially if they're European and West, pull it down, stop it. How does that work? I don't think he's serious. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Ifo or no, Brother Coco or Brother Philip, do you have anything to add on that? And welcome, comrades. Thank you for finding time to join us.
Yeah, I've been struggling. This is Brother Philip here. I've been struggling to join the meeting. I just joined. But if I can just pass a general comment, I think that when you're a violent person, you interpret things violently. And my feeling is that, looking at history, is that the Europeans and Americans have interpreted their religions quite violently, and the Arabs as well. That violent interpretation has also affected Africans, some more than others. So these are some of my general. I mean, there are places in Africa where Africans of different religions cohabit peacefully, But if you look at the history, I mean, people died in Europe for simply trying to translate the Bible into English. I mean, very, very violent and aggressive people, and so. I think that gives some sort of background to the discussion. Though I just joined. I hope I'm within the tracks.
Thank you, Brother Philip. You are not odd out in terms of your contribution. Of course, we are looking at Dr. Esi trying to say how the West can get it right in Africa. And they are saying that we disband the UN. He's also saying that yes, because this book is about defeating dictators, according to Dr. J. He's saying that these dictators won't then pursue or allow religious persecution should be banned from the United Nations. They should be kicked out as either punishment to make them stop such
Comply.
punishment.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think you have the power to do so. You can. I mean, it's an idea. At the idea stage of his book, and we start with ideas. So yes, but the actual implementation, as was said earlier, is where the issue is. Belling the cat.
Okay, thank you, Brother Ifo. Your hand is up, and I'll go to Brother Koko before I get to the few top points in the next team. Brother Ifo?
Quickly, I can't help but notice that they only mentioned non-African religions, which is the churches and mosques. That to me is very telling. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ifo. Brother Koko, do you have anything to share on this specific measure that Dr. Eti is trying to put forth, and even the measure we read before, in order to maybe stop or defeat dictators, Brother Koko? And how are you, brother?
Good things, always. Thank you for asking. I'm all right, but a bit tired today. I don't know why. I always have a lot to say about this guy because he's so whitewashed, so brainwashed, if that's the right word to use. It's sad because just listen to that. These specialized UN agencies strategically around the developing world. What the heck is that? What about in the developed world? Why don't they go there? Do they know better? So we were just talking about indigenous knowledge systems, I think, in the previous reading that we're having. And now again, he's pivoting to that paternalistic nature of the West again. So he is again advocating for neocolonialism. He's asking, colonize them. You haven't colonized them enough. To me, that's what he's saying here. I was agreeing with him with regards to the United Nations because the United Nations was formed before the African countries got their so-called liberation from the West. So we were never really part of this process. So I thought, yeah, maybe he's talking some sense. And then immediately, when he talks about their achievement, he talks about what they did in Libya. And I think when I came here, you were talking about that. Maybe some of you were talking about that already. But Libya is one of the worst disasters of international intervention, which whoever facilitated that was right out of his mind. But of course, they always are. That's how they survive, by exploiting, by plundering, by exploitation. So they were just looking at Libyan oil and also against the Union of Africa, which Gaddafi was threatening to fund, or the gold-backed currency, which he wanted to do on a continental scale. So for him just to say that they enforce that, he is again someone who is not read. He is misinformed. He doesn't know what is happening in the world. Again, he just reads propaganda, and that's it. He doesn't use critical reasoning, critical research, and look at all the different sides of the equation. Then when he talks about the dictators, again, it always goes back to the developing world again. It goes to Africa. He mentions the Mugabes and the others. Nothing from the West. Nothing from the so-called Western democracies. Don't tell me that Israel is, they always say it's a democracy, but to me, it's one of the worst examples of Western democracy. And look at Trump in the USA. You call that a democracy, a multi-party democracy? It's crazy. Someone has just stolen whatever the people's will or the people's wishes are, and is doing whatever he wants with those. And I too would have condoned that. He would have said, okay, this is how they do it, it's the West. Then when it comes to religion, you have already mentioned that, comrades, you talked about that. Nobody wants to see religious persecution, but I don't see how this gets into international relations and stuff like that. Is beyond the scope of this book. He's out of his depth when it comes to this. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. He just doesn't understand, because religion itself is a captured or hijacked institution of politicization of people's spirituality. So he doesn't understand. He's out of his depth. Okay. So let me leave it there, comrades. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Brother Coco, for coming in, and thank you very much for sharing your thinking with us, Brother Coco. I think as we continue this conversation, it's very interesting. I don't have much to comment on the veto power, but I know we have been having cat and mouse play. You see, like how the France decided to play Kenya with South Africa. Recently, when I don't know, they call it Security Council, or what was it? Where Ruto attended.
No, that was the G7, brother.
The G7. But remember the slot for Kenya in Security Council. You know that? The politics around it. That Kenya was given, I don't know, an observer status on the UN Security Council.
That was a G7. In France, when Macron invited Ruto.
In the G7, of course, Kenya was given that right over South Africa to attend. But of the UN, Kenya was given an observer right to the UN Security Council. Sometimes back, like 1 year or 2 years ago. Remember?
Yeah, that one we all know. Why is no African country with a veto power?
Now, the key question first is where I'm having concern with. So the West want to police the world. So they create their so-called Security Council to look at the security in the entire world, while the same West are the cause of all insecurity in the entire world. The higher in the first place. So you're creating a Security Council to provide security, which the same Security Council is the one that causes insecurity. Members of those Security Council. Second thing, an African country get a position there, and it's a privilege that you want to scramble for. Why don't you even get more positions to be seated in the so-called Security Council? And you realize that these architectures are not meant for us. They're meant actually against us. So we are struggling to be part of it. And even if we get that position, how much can you do to influence it? How much? Look at the example, the security expenditure in most of the military countries in the world. The entire, according to statistics I did, the entire Africa expenditure on military or security purposes is not even more than $12 billion. The entire continent, 55 of them. But one country calling itself America spends $760 billion annually in their so-called security. And you don't see an African country starting war all over the world. But you see so many wars in Africa, and you can point at some hands, hidden hands, from outside Africa. Now, I know there are people who are pushing for a just UN Security Council. But I know Haiti is starting by saying, let's create a new one. Of course, to my own thinking, if UN has to exist and continue existing, then a framework of creating a new one need to be there so that everybody must be on the table. But again, the disadvantage we have as a continent, that our 55 or 54 states will not favor us. And if a position was to be given, you rather give a position to AU, or we have a one continental government and then can speak with some volume. But you give a country that depends on their total security donation from the same West to sit in the same Security Council to try to dictate something, and the next day they will ask for an aeroplane or a chopper or a gun from the same country they're dictating. It's just appearance for purposes of appearance. And I think that's why we're pushing forward. We just don't need to sit there to appear. Because if you're giving us just visibility, what is the value of that visibility? But I see Brother Coco's hand is up. Brother Coco, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just remember something that I forgot to touch upon, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We had this long before these countries ever came together. We had that in Ubuntu, and nobody can teach us about that. Nobody. But what happened is they came to our countries, destroyed our nations, and draw lines between us, and also took our land. They haven't restored the land to the people. So the people with no access to land, where is the universal right in that? Haiti should not be talking about that, but he's not even talking about that because he is an agent of neocolonialism amongst us. And this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to spread their propaganda, nothing for us, nothing for the Africans or for the oppressed people of the world or anyone whose land got taken through colonization and was never returned. Or when it was returned to the few elites. None of this is discussed here. But what he is talking about is just gibberish. Gibberish. I think in this one, Congress, we just have to agree that it's out of his depth.
Brother Coco?
I had finished. I said, I think on this therapeutic medicine, I think he's out of his depth. Okay.
Sister Tapo, please come in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I totally agree with you, Comrade Coco. If you're looking at that statement there, and the abuse of veto power, one has to ask oneself what veto power is. Because it's almost saying it has to be my way or nothing at all. And if you have an institution that has embedded in its system veto power, then how are we going to say end the abuse of veto power? In what way would someone abuse veto power? Because the suggestions that he has after that statement, he says it should be possible to override a Security Council veto with a 2/3 majority vote in the Security Council. Okay, practically, how does one put this into practice? You first have a country that vetoes, and then you throw everything open to everybody, 2/3 majority vote in the Security Council. So why have the veto power? For me, he's misunderstood the whole purpose of this veto power. Because he is forgetting that these countries are being forced to act as one. And therefore, if one of them does not want to go on with an idea, they're forcing them to. Whereas in Ubuntu, we sit down and talk and talk and talk until we come to a consensus. These guys sit down and throw a tantrum and say, I'm not having it. And if I'm not having it, no one else is having it. So there's absolutely, like Brother Coco says, he doesn't seem to be serious with his suggestions on how to put this into practice. And why have veto power if the Secretary General should have the power to override? How does he make that decision? I think he's not serious. And I think he's forgetting that the United Nations was established for the few countries that are in the Security Council. And for some reason, because of pressure, they're being forced to have us observe. What are we going to observe? Observe what we know already, that we're outsiders. And then this particular one on dispersed specialized United Nations agencies. Why in North Korea? Economic development in North Korea. I don't know. I don't think this guy is serious. I don't even think we should be reading him. Joking. Oh. Anyway, I'll stop there for now.
Brother Coco, we are back to where we came from. Instead of trying to go to the extreme end of this. But
I know.
the reality is that there are many people who really endorse these things. Many people who really think that what he said is what should be done. Many people who take this thinking, and I think it's just that if you are to meet, there's a group of Pan-Africans you could meet and listen to how they'll be conversing on this, you really be surprised. I think in most of the conversations we've been having is that either we have a group of seriously conscious Pan-Africans rather than some Pan-Africans, if you call them Pan-Africans, who want to integrate. Those people pushing towards what they call globalization and so-called integration, which I think is, it was this Steve Biko who wrote the book, I Write What I Like.
I write. Yeah.
I Write What I Like.
That is correct.
Do you know he said that why should we be pushing for integration? For what?
Yes.
What we need is to work on ourselves. And anybody want to come in on our terms. But we should not be moving around the world seeking integration. Integration.
With whom?
So the thinking of Dr. Iti is trying to build that integrated, so-called, globalized, so-called. While the underpinning concept that Kwame Nkrumah puts on the exploitation, because fairly, 60-something or 70-something or 80-something years of UN existing, and African countries being members of the so-called UN security, those guys have never thought that it is wise enough even to give these so-called 55 countries a space somewhere. If that is not exploitation, or if that is not level of classes, like you see that the world is made up of 190 countries. Then 55 or 54 out of the so-called 190, you don't think they're even worth enough to have a seat. And now they should push for some observer thing. And if you give them a seat, you tell them, come observe. Really? What do you get out of that, that character? Is that even person you will still be pushing for to allow you to sit? Because if they've never given you a seat, you've been standing for years, and the majority, I think even the African countries should just walk out and leave that UN thing. Those people to sit there.
Absolutely.
And 54 sit every year to listen to them. You talk speeches, and you don't have even any power to be in the corridors of division. You come back to your countries, and you spend your country's resources, put people on the plane, take your alliances, go sit there, enjoy with the convoy of girlfriends, boyfriends, gym instructors, beauty, whatever, to flock the cities. Like what one of our president did here. He went with an entire plane full of people. Then you've been doing this for 60 years for somebody who has never even given you even space to sit down. So I don't think it's even fair enough in any way that somebody who is not interested over 60 years to really give you a space, you still want to ask them to give you a space. See? We should just leave that UN and come back and focus on AU.
I think because our leaders do not see that these guys want to, you want to keep your enemy close. That's exactly what they're doing. They want to keep us close so that they know how to exploit us. I can imagine if Africa just said, we're not coming there. We are not going to be members of the United Nations. Yeah. Then we just sit down in our own meetings, discuss our own things. If by
Exactly.
coincidence we agree on the same thing, that's fine. But this is nonsense. Who wants to go where they are not wanted?
People who suffering from Stockholm syndrome, Sister Tapua.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can say that again.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Anyway.
our friend from Uganda is one of those who said you cannot throw out the child with the bathwater with regards to the UN. The UN is defunct. Is
Mm.
defunct. And it's a distraction from important issues that the Africans should be focusing on. They should be using their times and energy on important matters. Okay? People like Traore hasn't been there in all of his years in power now. He hasn't been there because he knows it's a waste of time. He sends someone. And this is how they have to treat it. And your friend Ruto talked such a talk at some point, say, oh, the African leaders are being given a hard time. They are being treated badly, sent this way, that way, that way, all the 55 of them or 54 of them. And he's still going. He's still going. You know, for someone who said that, what he said, we thought maybe he would be sending the AU commission to all of these meetings. But no, he's still going. He's looking for PDM. He's looking for opportunity to travel along with his friends. And lots of the elites within the Kenyan society will stop him. They wouldn't allow him to do that. They want him to go. For what? I don't know. I don't know. This is a waste of time. It's such a disgrace, and they don't have a heart. They don't have a heart to stand up for the people. It's for them that they are going there. At the end of the day, if you have rightly said, for years and years we have been talking about the same thing. Where is Africa's representations in these matters? Nothing. Africa is just seen as one of those. Okay, just like South America and maybe Asia. It's only USA, Russia, France, Britain, and China, the 5 countries that have a veto, the power of veto in the Security Council. Everybody else doesn't matter. Those are the only people who you can say they have a full power within the UN. Everybody else doesn't matter. I don't even know why they are still going. Why are we still going on of such an institution as this? I don't know. Okay, but Haiti, the stuff that he is coming up with, like the council or the generalism, secretary general, he doesn't have power. He doesn't have power. It's the people who have power. The nations, people who represent the nations, who have more power than the secretary general. So I think that's as I said, he is out of his depth. He shouldn't have even put this out here. It's not well researched, unfortunately. But Siddhartha Tapua, the one thing I've noticed by reading this, you're sort of reading into the brain of people like him. You're understanding where the other people are thinking with regards to Pan-African unity. You're starting to see where some of our brethren are thinking with regards to how we can come together. And they don't have a clue. They are clueless. It's just like most of those who are still steeped in Christianity or steeped in Islam. They are still thinking, oh, we can get together with our brothers in the Middle East or get together with our brothers in the West. They don't realize that the black man, you are all by yourself. The black woman, you are all by yourself. This is where Africa has to come from that position, and start doing things on their own terms. Then we can talk about where we partner with others, where we need to partner. But at the moment, we are not. We are somebody else's sidekick all the time. We are somebody else's, the bride or the bridesmaid, and never the bride. Never the bride. Africa's resources are being used by all of these countries who come here. And I'm glad some you mentioned, keep your friends close. and your enemy is closer.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ifo. Please come in.
Yeah, just one quick thing. I agree with everything that the brother just said, except for one crucial thing. It said that the UN, and in this case, more precisely, the UN Security Council is dysfunctional. I disagree. And the only reason why I disagree is because the function of the UN is to make sure that those who stole things from us do not fight together and they can more efficiently rape and pillage the world. So based on that, they are functioning fine because that's why they were designed. Now, now to this, I don't have sufficiently insulting words to describe the mindset that would write these things that we are reading, because economic development is for UN set in North Korea. What alternative universe is that even sensible? But they are talking about getting rid of dictatorship. So it is like the author is schizophrenic because they are contradicting themselves. And that's all I have to say for now. Thank
Does anybody want to come in on this? Because I was also very surprised that the UN special agencies, some should be Zimbabwe for human rights and development. But let's look at the UN agencies in the world. For example, in Africa, I think Kenya is the home of all of them. So even the UN, was it the UN Security Council wanted to come to Kenya? And I'm told recently, even America has made a move that countries will only process their visa to America in Kenya. So if you want a visa for America and you're from Malawi, you come to Nairobi. Now, yeah, come to Nairobi. Now, they were given an extra land. They said they bought a land here. I don't know how many thousand of acres. I know where it is, the UN Security Council. In fact, it's around where Professor Lumumba stays. Those posh areas, the very posh areas, high-end areas in this world, especially in this country. It's called Rwanda. So Rwanda is one of the very exclusively rich environment. Now, even the value of land today, if whatever land they were taking there is to be evaluated in terms of even selling, today even an hectare of land, Rwanda, will cost too close to 1 billion Kenya shillings. Now, they have thousands of acres there. I don't know if it's 1,000 or what acres there. Now they transfer, they are all part of their services from US to Kenya. And some argument in the local country here, we are a strategic country with development partners.
Sorry, my brother, we're losing you. You're audible intermittently.
Let me, somebody can come in. Let me try to, what do you think?
While he's fixing his stuff, 2 points that I want to raise. The United Nations, just look where it is based. It's based in one country, okay? Every year that people go there, we are talking about a boost to that country's economy. And the same country that doesn't need any more further boost, okay? You have to take that into account. We're talking about tourism receipts that that country gets as a result of people attending the UN missions, attending the IMF and World Bank, all of those things. So in short, what we are doing is we are part of the metropolitan. We are still part the provinces, and they are the metropole. So that system still exists. This is what Walter Whitney had written, is colonialism. That is what imperialism was about. Imperialism was the mother country, and then the provinces or others exist to serve the mother country. And this is more or less the same thing that is happening. If we have a new reconstituted or reconstructed UN, it has to have representations in different other countries, not just Washington or the New York. No. And again, look at how difficult it is to get a visa to go to that country. Why? If you are someone who is supposed to be the center of the world. No, it doesn't work. It's the center of the world when it suits them, not for when it's for the other people. So there are lots of issues with the current system. And our friend here, the only dictators he'll be willing to quote their names. It's like people like Robert Mugabe who stood there and questioned and queried the UN as it stands. He challenged it, or he challenged it at the AU as well. He might have his own shortcomings as a leader. We all know that, they all do. But because he refused to bend to their will, he will be one of those that gets quoted about this book. And it's not the only one. I'm sure even Kuma was quoted somewhere here disparagingly because he doesn't conform with madness.
Well, thank you. Brother Coco, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now, what I was saying,
Yes, we can hear you.
what I was saying is that the UN agencies want to be pushed across the world. Many people, as Brother Coco said, will calculate the economic value of it. So Kenyans will argue, do you know how many visitors will be hosting here? If you have the offices here, do you know how much is that in terms of the economic return? If everybody has to travel from Central and East Africa to come seek US visa in Kenya, do you know how much is that? You see? So the do you know much and much and much. Good narrative. Very good. But at the end of the day, compared to how much they give us, how much do they take? Do you know how much we lose to them? Just recently, the Kenyan government are delayed to renew the license for the Batuk, the British armies who are training in Kenya. Very progressive move. Of course, they have been involved in killing of some of our daughters, those police officers in the area they are having their Batuk. That's the same place they were agreeing on how they could set up, because the Batuk is actually a joint of both Britain and US. But at the same time, when Kenya want to deny a British renewal of their so-called military base, remember when Macron came here, he came with 700 soldiers, whom we never saw leaving back to France after the summit. Remember, at the borders of Kenya and Somali, the US is putting a military camp, and they are claiming that they are fighting Al-Shabaab, who continue to attack us, and we've never seen their intervention. Now they have their agencies all over. You see, there's a lot that some of us don't see. And most of Africans, as I was saying, few of us can see critically and analyze this. Majority of Africans will tell you how valuable those things are. They'll appreciate that actually need to have them. But the bottom line, they don't go to the level of understanding that this, what Brother Kok say imperialism, actually Nkrumah called capitalism imperialism without border. It's a free imperialism all over the world. So it's not confined. So these are a few things you're seeing, and that's the last comment I wanted to make there, because Dr. Eti appears that he has maybe many followers in Africa, and as much as we are surprised, many people might be liking these ideas, and that is the danger we have as a continent. Let me end there.
Thank you very much, my brother, for that. Because for me, the moment I see a country being the, in quotation marks, blue-eyed boy of the West, then you automatically know that they're being primed for selling out. And they're having crumbs thrown at them so that they take the bait, be given a few pennies, line their pockets, have visas processed much easier so that they get more and more integrated and they sell out. That's my take. Sorry about that.
It's okay, sister. I'll request
Yeah.
you read this, and then we'll allow Brother Philip and Brother Ifo to come in first with their comment after you read this section, because we want to end in this section. More vigorous push for intellectual freedom. Dr. It
Okay.
is very good on intellectual freedom, pushing for so-called freedom of expression and everything else. But let's hear what he says here, and then we can end our session with this, please.
All right. Okay. Yes, I'll read. The subtitle is Make a More Vigorous Push for Intellectual Freedom. I suppose that's one of the do's. A current theme throughout this book has been the advocacy for the defense of freedom of expression. As we argued in chapter 2, this freedom is not a Western invention, but has existed in all traditional societies. Former President of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, once said, "In the 21st century, the capacity to communicate will almost certainly be a key human right. An opinion or viewpoint can be expressed, written, sung, performed, or aired in a whole variety of media: novels, books, newspapers, print media, in theaters, films and plays, or on the air, radio and television, and on the internet. The combination of all these constitutes intellectual freedom. Dismantling a dictatorship requires reform and more reform. We've made clear that the establishment of intellectual freedom is the critical first step. A free media is the most effective weapon against all dictatorships. Why are the communists in China more terrified of a free media than they are of the Japanese? If WikiLeaks has a sanitizing effect on the conduct of US foreign policy, imagine what a free media in a developing country would do. A free media could put the brakes on Iran's nuclear programs, end North Korea's nuclear threats, cut China's chopstick mercantilism down to size, and put Hugo Chavez back in the military barracks where he belongs. Had there been a free media in Iraq under Saddam Hussein, the war that has cost so much blood and treasure might not have been necessary. Had there been a free media in Somalia, Rwanda, Burundi, and Liberia, these countries would not have imploded. A free media in a developing country does not threaten the national interests of any Western country. Huh? Huh? He's mad.
No, it doesn't, because it is sponsored by the West. How does it threaten their interest? And their interest become national interest. National interest. You see, that word national is also quoted. Now, it's very
It's
interesting.
clear. It's
Eh?
clear, guys. It's clear this guy is was working for them. Is a paid spy, nothing less.
Brother Coco, you know, this guy starts very well, saying,
No.
look at how he starts. He's saying that free media was not an invention of the West. You see?
Yes.
Because,
Mhm.
of course, in traditional Africa setup, everybody was allowed to speak what they wanted to speak. You didn't have to fear
Mhm.
anybody else. Very
Mhm.
well start up. Then he goes ahead to give very, very funny examples. Put the brake on Iran's nuclear plan, and North Korea nuclear
Why?
threats, cut China chopstick
Why?
mentalism, put Hugo Chavez where
Wow.
he belongs. Very, very,
Why?
very crazy examples. Then now he ends here by saying that because a free media in a developing country does not threaten national interests of any Western country. Very good confession. Very good
Absolutely.
confession. But
Yes.
then, if that is what you know is the truth, then why are you pushing for that free media? How free is the free media? Free to who? You see, I actually don't agree that the government should try to sometimes intimidate journalists, kill them, harass them, or do all that. I don't support that. You see, I don't support government threatening or putting life of journalists in danger. We've seen it in the continent here during the protest here, for example, the June 24th. Some journalists were tear gassed. We don't actually want that. Recently, when there was a by-election, some journalists were hit. But again, I appreciate the role that media today does to inform the society. And not only TV. Everybody in the village are having radio stations or radios in their workspace. They are either at the farm, there's a small radio somewhere. That radio is what will inform them the welfare of the country. They don't know what's going on. Anywhere in the corridor of this country today, in the continent, you'll get people with a radio. So yes, media act as a source of information. But the question is, the information is based on who owns the media house. So for example, recently there was a battle in Kenya here. The current president, there was a former president, Moi, and I think most of you heard of the name Daniel Moi.
Of
Now,
course, yes.
Moi was the second president of this country. He served for 24 years. Now, his son and his family owned a media station. Now, you need to know now who owned the media. His family owned a media station. His son was a senator under the father's party. Then they were shortchanged and they were all not elected. Now, the president is believed that had promised him to step down in any the by-election that was coming up for exchange of government work job. Now, if I show you the headlines of media station in Kenya, I'm telling you, I don't think if there's any media station there in the African continent could dare to put those headlines, especially that standard media headline. Now, the government said now recently, and President went directly to speak to that son of Moi, that you cannot fight me with your media. So when media started exposing his fake trips, how money are being looted in State House, how maybe money is squandered where and where, corruption everywhere, he said the media was fighting his administration. Yes, probably. It can be true because maybe that son of former president and himself are not in good terms, so they are exposing him. That is fighting him. Now, remember when Larry Madowo was covering the CNN reports in Kenya during the protest?
Mhm.
And the world knew what was going on in Kenya. In one way, you could say maybe they wanted to taint bad name as other Kenyans were saying. And in fact, Tanzanians also said the same, that Larry Madowo wanted to taint their image in the international community. But in the sense, you appreciate that he actually made the world know what's going on. You see? So there's a double sword here. It's like a double sword edge here. The media can sometimes portray the reality that goes on in the society for people to be informed, and sometimes can also only portray what the owner wants. Very well. But now, some of us forget that there's a hand of West, leave alone even the internal oligarchs, the West into this. And the question I'll ask all of us before I land is, do we really need to have media? And if there was no media, would we not have communication? And how can it really help this? Because it's very clear from Dr. Iti's confession that medias work for the West. But it doesn't mean that free information or media, because even in our traditional society, there was a messenger, I believe so. There was a messenger who could go around the country or across the village to give the message that the chief or the whatever is saying this and this, you see? There were drums that could act as a medium of message. So that's where my confusion ends. So please, maybe let's come in and share what's there. But it's a very straight confession here. Anybody want to come in? Anybody want to come in as I try to look for some headlines of those media channels? We are having around 8 minutes.
Since nobody's saying anything, there's this strange situation of Moroccans who 60,000 of them went into some land in Africa, which in my opinion is still Morocco. But mysteriously, Spain claims it as their land. And most of the headlines are about the invasion of Spain by Moroccans. When the Moroccans never left Africa. And so many laws have been changed in Europe because of this called invasion. But in reality, it was Spain that invaded Morocco and was refusing to give the land back. And people are just going to their own land. But, you know, they claim it is part of Europe, even though it's physically in Africa. This is the nonsense thinking of colonialism that is being normalized. So, yeah. When I saw some of the nonsense in the writing, I was thinking of other nonsense, and that popped in my head. I'll yield for now.
Yeah, defeating the dictators is all about all of those countries, according to Haiti, which don't conform to Western democracy. So he's wearing Western lenses and seeing everyone else as doing the wrong thing, and they need to be brought back or brought to heel, if we use that word. And the media, which most of it has been largely Western in nature or funded by the CIA in most of our countries, or mostly Western, let's say that, and it's a propaganda machinery. It's a perfect tool. It's a perfect tool for spies such as Haiti. Haiti is his intent is to westernize every corner of the world, and especially Africa, regardless of what traditions, customs, ways of doing things we were doing before they came, and which still work, which are still useful for our people. So Haiti is one of those who they said the white man was very clever. He came in quietly, and we were laughing at him stupidly with his religion, and we were laughing at him. And now our brothers have followed him. He has stuck a knife into the strings that bind us together. Our clan can no longer function together. He's that type of person who we were talking about here, who Chino and Chile was had in mind here. They are the ones who were used to undermine our democracy, our own, or our sovereignty as the people of Africa. He's a Mobutu. Now, let's not forget, Mobutu was a journalist as well. So Mobutu would have been a perfect journalist who came in undercover and took out Lumumba. So this is who IT is asking for. And the Mobutu, nobody bothered, because Mobutu was getting orders directly from White House. So I don't know what IT is even talking about. If he is not addressing the fact that most of these guys, it depends in which corner you are. If you are taking the orders directly from the West, then you're okay. You're not the dictator according to them. I don't know. He frustrates me. But we have to go to brains such as this to understand how they function. Thank you.
Mm. Like I said before, for me, he appears very shallow in his analysis. The sweeping statement that he has there, when he says, had there been a free media in Somalia, Rwanda, Burundi, and Liberia, these countries would not have imploded. I mean, think of Somalia and the challenges that Somalia has, and all the fingers that are in the Somalia pie. And he's thinking that if there was free media, things would not have imploded. Seriously. Seriously. I
I
don't
can
think so.
understand that. I can understand that Rwanda and Burundi are in the east of Africa, so he doesn't know much about them. But he should know about Liberia. He should know that Liberia's issues were entrenched and historical, and they were a making of the free, what is it, American colonization society, ACS, which brought in the people they wanted to use to colonize in Africa.
Brother Ifo, then Brother Philip, as we end this.
So I'm just going to use Liberia as an example. Charles Taylor was sitting in prison in America, and the Americans released him, helped him run his campaign, and he became the president of Liberia. So was it free media that did that, or lack of free media, or was it America's imperial intervention? And that's the thing that I find really problematic about this. It pretends as if that everything is internal and nothing happened from outside. I yield.
Brother Philip, please come in.
Yeah, I think that from his writing, he's seeming to suggest that the West has a free media, which we know is not the case. I mean, they are influencing us here in Africa. And so that is a wrong sort of premise if that is indeed what is underlying what he's saying, that the West has a free media, we don't. I don't think that's a correct picture. On the surface of it, it seems okay, but I belong to one of these Pan-Africanist groups, and we're trying to set up a Pan-African radio station. We were not able to do that, but it can be free, but it had an objective. So we would want to look at the news and so on from a Pan-African perspective, a developmental perspective, a perspective to motivate people towards a better united Africa. And so free to some extent, but a media with a mission, I think, especially when we're talking about Africa, a media with a mission to unite the continent and to give us a better way of life, and to call a spade a spade. I mean, if Arabs are sitting on 50% of our land, I mean, that needs to be highlighted, of African land, that they are not Africans. I mean, there are a few who, are working or in history and in the current are working towards, a united Africa. A few of them, some of their leaders and so on and so forth. Not all of them are racist. But there are certain things that would need to be highlighted. and a media with a mission, I think, is a more appropriate term.
Thank you, brother Philip. I think, comrades, we had agreed to go through Dr. Iti's book, because sometimes it's very important to listen to what you don't want to hear. That which you don't want to listen to. Sometimes it's very important to listen to that, because it gives in then the other side of what really you could have missed if you didn't listen. And I'm telling you, the conversation here might appear this deep and shows you maybe the level of our consciousness. There are other conferences that might review the same book and you'll get a different result on how conversation and the trajectory of the conversation. But I think to us, it equips us and it shows it to us like an exercise of our thinking. Is like a joking exercise. Like we try to exercise our consciousness on how we sharpen our positions and how we look at things critically, you see. And it's very blessings to some of us, because I think people like myself who are very interested in the political scenes, when you started this book, I could quote a lot of some of the words Dr. Iti was using. But when I get deep to it, I start wondering again, oh, where is this guy speaking from? So yeah, that's what I can say. Sister Tapo, please close it for us as you come in.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just thinking about free media. And I'm thinking about maybe I'm finding an excuse for him in terms of the extent of the change in media that has happened since this book was written. Because I'm also looking at how during the quite a bit of the European elections, you have interference. Particularly, Russia has been accused of interfering in the elections of America, influencing media, and so on. And one begins to wonder to what extent we should value free media, especially with the precarious position that Africa occupies in the world today. We are a fledgling people who are trying to find our feet. And we have these monsters who control the media. With Elon Musk being as powerful and threatening to influence the midterm elections in America. And he's accused of having manipulated the results of the last election to have Donald Trump win. One wonders the extent to which we should actually have free media. Because my temptation would be then, if we have a person like Traore to lock down and lock out France, because they're bound to influence people in a negative way using the media, what's wrong with that? But of course, there's also the opposite, because malicious, should I say, a dictator who's a proper dictator, you know, from an African point of view, could also use media to disadvantage people. So I was just trying to highlight that the nature of media today would not and cannot stop dictators. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. So let's continue next week. I think as we almost done. Let's just be patient. We have really we really exercise some level of patience with Dr. Iti. I think once we are done with this book, we can take any contrary opinion, because we've really been patient enough.
Yes.
So we are not far away from finishing this. Then we will now get to the other side. Because as I've said, sometimes as much as you like listening to some good tunes, sometimes it's also good to expose yourself to the other side of the conversation. So we have to keep Dr. Iti as an enemy closer as we keep Dr. Nkrumah close.
Yes.
So, comrades, thank you very much for your time. We will continue. The radio station is trying to talk about here on a free radio station. And I think what the brother Philip are trying to build is something worth. We are also trying to build from our side maybe a press thing. But again, you see, it's very hard to have an independent source of media today. But if we can generate, it will be a good thing for us. But as we are trying to focus on how we give them a philosophical and ideological information rather than just giving news on how it happened, because most of media then will just give you news of what happened. They don't go deep to the questions of why, how, the implication side of it. It's just this and this happened in this place, and that's what happened done. But some of us must go deeper to ask why and how that took place, you see. So thank you very much. And yeah, let's meet again next week. Whether we are 2, 3, or 4, we could continue to do this. And thank you for always being here with all of us. Bye-bye for now. Until next week.
Right. Bye, everyone. Good night. Enjoy
Good
your
night.
meal, Ifo. Enjoy
Good
your
night.
meal. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, are there